Hi everyone, my name is Austin, and today I'm going to review Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Before there was a TV show, there was this movie here. So without further ado, let's talk about it. The plot for Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius goes like this. This is Jimmy Neutron, an 11-year-old boy living in Retroville, Texas, whose intelligence is on par with that of Lisa Kudrow, who, no joke, is actually very smart despite playing one of the most airheaded characters in a sitcom, and lives with his parents Hugh and Judy alongside his robotic dog Goddard. One day, he launches a space communication satellite made from a toaster in order to try and communicate with extraterrestrial life. It eventually gets picked up by the Yokians, a race of egg-like aliens who decide that while they could be friendly and offer the few lover a handshake, that abducting all the parents in Retroville would be a much more feasible option. That way they can sacrifice them to their chicken god Poltra. Why not just kidnap all the people of Earth, let alone the parents, is beyond me. And why not just abduct Jimmy? He sent the message to begin with. And what about college students with kids? Does that make them eligible for abduction? Or what about even teenage parents? And how come there's no news teams or police reporting on what's going on here? Sorry, I just wanted to do a little ripping. Anyway, with the parents gone, this is how the kids initially feel. Then there's the reality of the situation.
It's a cookbook! It's a cookbook!
Deciding it's time to go and save the parents, the Jimmy and the children of Retroville decide to go to the Yokian homeworld, kick their butts, and make it back home with their families. Yeah, if you're expecting a scene like this to happen, sorry, but this isn't that type of movie. It's a film about a really smart kid and other kids going to save their parents from a race of egg aliens who taste pretty good scrambled. And for what it's worth, it's pretty good. And it's a charming, heartfelt adventure. Now then, it's production time! When it comes to Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius's production, we must say hello to a boy once known as Johnny Quasar. The idea began circulating around during the 1980s, when John A. Davis scripted and storyboarded a short narrative called Runaway Rocket Boy, which centered on Johnny Quasar, which Davis took from a nickname his summer co-workers coined for him in his youth, who builds himself a rocket and runs away from his parents. In an episode of the Nickelodeon animation podcast, Davis said that he originally had written the concept to be a live-action film with special effects and matte shots, even going so far as to even apply for a grant to get the project off the ground, ultimately finding that getting that kind of money was near impossible due to the film not being considered educational or informative. What he should have done was take the project to Lucasfilm and Amblin Entertainment, have Paramount and Disney co-produce the film, and then convince either Dennis Muren, Richard Edlund, or Ken Ralston to do the effects, with Rick Baker doing makeup and Norman Reynolds doing production design. Anyway, the project went unmade for many years until Davis found the abandoned script while preparing for moving, where around that same time his studio DNA Productions had begun toying with the idea of the usage of computer animation after gaining copies of Lightwave 3D. Seeing this, Davis thought the film would be ripe for a CGI film, especially since all of the science fiction set pieces could be completely modeled in 3D. Eventually, Davis and DNA co-founder Keith Alcorn produced a 40-second proof-of-concept demo film which depicted Johnny and his robot dog Goddard, cruising through an asteroid belt and telling the viewers, "Hello!"
What galaxy are you from? Oobla. Where is your leader? Oobla, stop it.
While at the same time, Davis and Alcorn made a story bible as an outline for a potential TV show. In 1995, the demo was showcased at the SIGGRAPH CGI convention, where it was placed in a competition for Lightwave films, where it gained notability in the computer animation industry faster than Kiefer King cleaning Kiefer Sutherland's deck at midnight with his Uncle Topher and brother Jack, getting lots of press coverage in magazines and winning 2 Wavy Awards, one for Best Character Animation and the other for Best in Show. Among the people that were starstruck by the short was Steve Odekirk, the owner of O Entertainment, a writer for the 1996 version of The Nutty Professor and Bruce Almighty, and the director of Ace Ventura When Nature Calls, and of course, Kung Pao, Enter the Fists.
My nipples look like milk duds.
Who saw a still of Johnny and Goddard in a CGI magazine. Odekirk was a big backer behind the computer animation, and liked the character designs, as when he viewed the still shot, he said it seemed fun in contrast to the more photorealistic work being done with CGI during that time frame. Odekirk then got into contact with Davis, wanting to see the whole demo short, for which, after seeing it, as well as taking a gander at the show Bible that Davis and Alcorn had whipped up, Odekirk decided, let's take this idea to as many networks as possible and see which one says yes. After partnering up with O Entertainment, the company had begun work on conceiving a full-length pilot for the show, then titled The Adventures of Johnny Quasar, writing a more fleshed-out version of the original Runaway Rocket Boy story, and altering several aspects of Johnny's design to have him look more like a child. Previously, he looked like Donald Pleasence crossed with Pete Davidson, while one design had resembled what looks like the love child of Jacob Bertrand, Jack Palance, Klaus Kinski, and Angus Scribb. There may be some liberties with that one. In the fall of 1995, the idea was pitched to Nickelodeon, who drew interest immediately to the project, impressing then Nickelodeon's president, Albie Hecht, who declared Johnny one half Bart Simpson and the other Albert Einstein, as opposed to the other thing he could have compared him to, which was one part Don Simpson and one part Albert Finney. Cringeworthy joke aside, Hecht liked Johnny's blended personality as both one who's adventurous and the other that was very intelligent, one that was grounded in the reality of childhood, which according to him was perfect for the Nickelodeon brand. And following the positive reception of the initial short received, Nickelodeon commissioned the creation of a 13-minute pilot episode, which took several years to put through the review process before finally commencing production in late 1997, finishing in 1998. Within that time, Nickelodeon had asked that the name of Johnny Quasar be changed to avoid confusion with the likes of Johnny Quest or Captain Quasar, an isometric third-person shooter video game that released on the 3DO in February of 1996, followed by a PC version in 1997. So Davis thought up many other names for the character while walking his dog, eventually coming up with the name Jimmy Neutron, which was either that or Jerry Plutonium, Joey Saturn, Jeff Moon, or Jules Conroy. Yeah, again, I may also be taking liberties with this. So anyway, after the pilot was completed, Nickelodeon executives who dug the pilot and still had enthusiasm about the show's potential raised the prospect of creating a theatrical film to accompany the TV series, which came as a shock to both Davis and the team he had at the studio. Meanwhile, during the initial pitch to Nickelodeon, Odenkirk noted that with the use of computer animation, the same models and assets could be reused between both a film and a TV show, which was something Nickelodeon was lacking. Davis further suggested the movie be done first, so that the character models could be produced at a higher quality than what a TV budget was capable of at the time. Although Nickelodeon was worried it was going to be difficult to market the film without the show to build up an initial install base for the series. These fears were soon quelled, however, through a series of short TV interstitials which aired to try and build up hype for the upcoming film. The film was soon greenlit in fall of 1999, for which work began on a script with a budget of $30 million, before then starting production in February of 2000 under Davis's production. In order for production to move faster than a speeding bullet, the company's staff went from 30 to about 150 employees, and the studio's workplace was altered so that more filmmakers could be in the room, which must have paid off as the film wrapped up production within 24 months, which is roughly half the time that most other computer-animated films finished. And now, we move to the writing process. For the writing for the film, the screenplay was written by both John A. Davis and Steve Odenkirk, alongside Rugrats staff writers David N. Weiss and J. David Stern, where the former two thought up many ideas that came from their respective childhoods, brainstorming as to the kind of gadget a kid would invent if they had the skills to create such. Some of Davis's biggest influences include the stop-motion works of Ray Harryhausen and Thunderbird, while also taking from his own love of science fiction that he's had since childhood. Meanwhile, certain ideas, such as the burping soda that Jimmy has as an invention, was thought up by Odenkirk's 6-year-old daughter Zoe, which is convenient in case someone thought only a 6-year-old would write such a joke, then they could technically say that a 6-year-old actually wrote it. While Sheen's obsession with Ultralord was inspired by Davis's love of collecting. Speaking of which, Sheen was originally intended to be that of Japanese descent, being named after a Japanese employee who worked for Davis, only for the filmmakers to have trouble finding a suitable voice actor whose origins were Japanese. I could think of two that would have fit the criteria. And if they just need someone of Asian descent, they could have had Johnny Young Bosch voice the character, even though he's of Korean origins, not Japanese. Anyway, they eventually changed the character's nationality to Mexican, which opened up the role to a much broader category, and miraculously found that Mexican-American comedian Jeffrey Garcia was perfect for the role and thus was chosen. While we're on the topic of voice casting, before Debbie Derryberry was cast as Jimmy, E.G. Daly, Nancy Cartwright, and Pamela Adlon were all considered to voice the character, and when Derryberry was cast, it was her biggest acting role up to that point, having mostly done small parts in films and TV shows, making this her big break in what's become her most defining role. Now then, let's talk about the animation. For Jimmy Neutron's animation, it should be noted that the film became the first computer-animated film to be made with the usage of commercial animation programs instead of just proprietary software, being done via Lightwave and Messiah. The characters were first modeled in Lightwave, for which after they would be rigged and animated in Messiah, while texture painting was performed through Adobe Photoshop and compositing work was completed with Maya Fusion. In addition to being the executive producer for the movie, Keith Alcorn was also the primary lead character designer and produced cartoonish designs so as not to overcomplicate matters. For scenes involving crowds, methods of simplification were used to make animating the film less of a taxing effort, with characters that were the furthest from the camera having less articulation and animators duplicating a lot of these same characters, offsetting them to different locations and changing any and all body parts so that not everyone looked the exact same and we could tell who was who. According to John A. Davis, the character models were purposefully given what is best described as a sculpted graphic look, both not to make them look overly realistic and to not have to worry about simulating either hair or cloth, with these character designs in turn influencing the aesthetic of the world, such as allowing cars to be modeled while still fitting with the characters' rather large heads. In addition, off-the-shelf rig shaders were preferred compared to those that offered more photorealistic lighting in order to make sure that it still looked like a cartoon and not like a video game. I know that seems like a paradox, but this isn't the Ten Commandments. This is Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, a Nickelodeon movie and Nickelodeon's first computer animated movie at that. And now, my friends, it is time to do what we always do. It is to take a look and to listen side by side. I'm sorry, wrong show. I mean, let's get to my overall opinion. Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I didn't grow up with Jimmy Neutron as my go-to cartoon when I was watching Nickelodeon during the 2000s. It was never a show that caught my interest, and I only ever watched it like a select handful of times whenever it was on, and I basically had nothing better to do and nothing else to watch. In fact, if you asked me what my go-to Nicktoons were back then, I would have said either SpongeBob SquarePants or The Fairly OddParents, as I generally prefer the 2D animation of those shows versus the computer animation of Jimmy Neutron. I mean, hell, SpongeBob SquarePants is what I consider my favorite TV show of all time. And when it comes to Nicktoons, I'd probably be more inclined to watch something like The Ren and Stimpy Show, Invader Zim, The Angry Beavers, and Hey Arnold, as those were shows that I remember seeing on Netflix up until their removal in 2013, when Viacom relinquished all the rights to all Nickelodeon shows from the streaming service. And if you ask me what I would have watched instead of Jimmy Neutron when SpongeBob wasn't an option, I would have watched Ed, Edd n Eddy, Ben 10, Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball Z, Johnny Bravo, Power Rangers, Young Justice, Batman Beyond, Regular Show, Scooby-Doo, Top Cat, Hong Kong Phooey, Young Bear, Batman the Animated Series, Animaniacs, and its Classified Tool Survival Guide, Kenan and Kel, and a ton of Tom and Jerry cartoons that were reran like mad on Cartoon Network and or Boomerang. Point being, Jimmy Neutron was not a show that I was in love with back in the day, considering that I also started watching a lot of classic sitcoms like Everybody Loves Raymond, King of Queens, Seinfeld, Golden Girls, and Community later on. Poor Jimmy never stood a chance against my ever so distinct tastes that can be subject to change over time. That being said though, I do really enjoy the movie, as it was the only Jimmy Neutron thing that I ever had in my collection. I first remember watching it off of the VHS release that came in a yellow clamshell case, which had the 90th anniversary variant of the Paramount feature presentation bumper that appeared before the movie started. And after the movie ended, you got the music videos for Aaron Carter's Leave It Up to Me, and the cover of Kim Wilde's Kids in America by the all-girl group No Secrets, which was one of two early 2000s films to use a cover of the classic 80s tune. The other being Digimon the Movie with Glenn, the group best known for Steal My Sunshine, covering the song. I later received the DVD for the film as a Christmas present one year, along with a Beatles t-shirt that had the Abbey Road album cover, a DVD of GoldenEye, which I'm gonna have to replace that one in favor of the release that exists, and the 2010 video game version of GoldenEye 007 for the Wii. I still have yet to actually play the test as a full classic, and I even remember recording it off of Showtime at one point. Point being, I really like the movie, even more so than the show, and looking at it now, it's still pretty good in my opinion, and may actually make me appreciate the show a bit more. To start, the animation isn't half bad. As while it's nowhere near the quality of, say, Shrek or Monsters Inc., more on those later, it looks pretty good, with some nice backgrounds, smooth movements, good character models, and nice art style that feels both vibrant and colorful, and is a good showcase of how different the animation is from the show that came after the movie. I think it's safe to say that a good chunk of money was well spent here, as it's very well animated. That's for sure. Next up, I like the voice cast for the movie, as Debbie Derryberry really shines as Jimmy, making him likable and charming and never coming off as insufferable or whiny, unlike Kotaku. She really makes the most out of the role, and considering she would also voice the character in the most recent Nickelodeon kart racer game, pretty much shows that she was made for this character, along with many other young animated males. Another voice talent giving an iconic performance is Rob Paulsen as Jimmy's friend Carl, Weezer, the dim-witted, llama-loving, overly scared, and fluffy boy who accompanies him throughout much of the adventure. While it's obvious he's just doing the same voice he did for PJ and Goof Troop, Paulsen nevertheless makes the voice work for the character, capturing the awkward, dorky nature of Carl without missing a beat. It should also be noted that he also voices Carl's parents and even one of the kids in the classroom.
We're going out dancing! Ultra dance!
Then you also have Jeffrey Garcia as everyone's favorite hyperactive ultra-lore loving weirdo, Sheen Estevez. And man does he know this character. Garcia makes damn sure that Sheen isn't just a character who acts like he just downed an entire beer mug's worth of pixie sticks. He makes sure that he lives in your mind like a crackpot in my closet. He's a funny character, and one that makes the most of his screen time, and is a man after my own heart, reminding me of my fascination with Star Wars when I was a kid. We also have Carolyn Lawrence as Cindy Vortex, Jimmy's rival, who secretly has a soft spot for the boy genius. Lawrence is pretty good as Cindy, making sure that while she is certainly out to antagonize Jimmy, she doesn't outright despise him, and never comes off as annoying or mean-spirited. Lawrence excels in the role, and between Cindy and Sandy Cheeks, it makes her one of the great female voices for Nicktoons. Although it wouldn't be surprising if someone took both characters' dialogue and inserted it into Resident Evil 4, given how Lawrence voiced Ashley in the original game. On a side note, I'd like to also mention that I like Cindy's design in the movie here. As while her design in the show is fine, I find this design for the movie is better. Feeling more classy and sophisticated with her pink button-up shirt and black jeans compared to her green tank top and khakis seen in the show. Then you have the big-name celebrity talents of Patrick Stewart and Martin Short as both King Boobot V and Ooblar respectively, and both do an excellent job here. Stewart is delightful as King Boobot, capturing the more annoyed elements of the character quite nicely, while also going over the top for other scenes fantastically. And it shows that he had an absolute blast making the movie, while Short is nothing short, no pun intended, of a joy as Ooblar, the overzealous and incompetent assistant of King Boobot, who makes the character fun and charming in the way that only Martin Short can be. Between this and Treasure Planet, it also shows that Martin Short is great at voicing bumbling oafs in animated movies. There's also good voice acting from Crystal Rhodes as Cindy's friend Libby Fulfax, Frank Welker as Jimmy's robotic dog Goddard, as well as other creatures, Candy Milo as cool kid Nick Dean, Megan Cavanaugh as Jimmy's mom Judy, as well as Fox and even Cindy's mom, Mark Carlo as everyone's favorite animated dad, Hugh, who also voices Cindy's dad, among other characters. Andrea Martin as Jimmy's teacher, Ms. Winifred Vowell, and former Entertainment Weekly hosts Bob Goen and Mary Hart
And my voice causes seizures. But
as Yokian newscasters. Plus, keep on the lookout for these other voice talents. The movie is also well-paced, getting the ball moving and never stopping for any reason, because that would slow down the movie, and the less the movie drags, the better. Lastly, the soundtrack to the movie is pretty decent, with an appropriate score by John Debney, fitting the scenes of action, humor, and everything in between. Although, according to IMDb, at one point John Williams was going to do the score, but turned it down. Which, if that's true, that would have been amazing. But Debney's score does work, and almost feels like a John Williams score at some points. Meanwhile, the music in the film isn't bad either, being filled with some very late 90s, early 2000s music here, such as the aforementioned Aaron Carter, rest in peace, NSYNC, Britney Spears, and the Backstreet Boys, while also featuring classics like The Chicken Dance, The Go-Go's We Got the Beat, and the Ramones' Blitzkrieg Bop. It was either that or I Want to Be Sedated. With a Game Boy! But don't fret, folks, as the iconic Jimmy Neutron theme is here, albeit in a different form. You see, in the series, Brian Causey actually recorded a version that was used for the pilot episode, but would later be used in the TV series. For the movie, however, Bowling for Soup, who certainly know their way around a show's theme song, composed a version of the show's theme specifically for the movie, remixing it and making it longer in the process. And I must say, while the show's theme is iconic, I prefer Bowling for Soup's version a bit more. It just sounds more action-packed and makes me want to headbang on unapologetically, like an absolute madman, not to mention would also fit for a Jimmy Neutron reboot that pays homage to a lot of Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon adventure comics, which could work if done right. But, overall, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius is really good, and is perfect for those who are geniuses and those who are adventurous. Before the film's Christmas release in 2001, a series of shorts aired on Nickelodeon starting February 5th of that year, sometimes tied in with online games found on Nickelodeon's website. While clips from those shorts were spliced together to form the teaser trailer, which was shown during the theatrical release of Rugrats in Paris the movie, which explains why some scenes shown in that trailer aren't exactly from the movie. In April 2001, Nickelodeon Magazine launched an online comic strip dedicated to Jimmy Neutron, while 2 months later, when Lara Croft Tomb Raider released, an actual theatrical trailer debuted. Jimmy made appearances at the 2001 Kids' Choice Awards and Trident Gum commercials. Radio Shack and Mattel produced toys for the film, and in September 2001, Nickelodeon launched a series of pranks where Jimmy would pop up in episodes of Rugrats and SpongeBob SquarePants, mischievously zapping them with an electronic device, altering them in the process. Initially getting its premiere in India on June 22, 2001, the film got its wider release on December 21st, 2001, where it grossed $103 million on a budget of $30 million, which of course made it successful. In fact, on its opening weekend, it opened third behind Ocean's 11 and the Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring, and gained positive reviews from critics, with the likes of Roger Ebert, Rita Kempley of the Washington Post, and Paul Tatara of CNN liking the film. The movie was even nominated for an Oscar for Best Animated Feature alongside Shrek, which won, and Monsters, Inc., which also made it the first Nickelodeon movie's production to gain such a nomination, something that would be followed up 10 years later with Rango, which ended up winning. The movie, of course, soon spawned the TV series, The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, a ride at Universal Studios Florida called Jimmy Neutron's Nicktoon Blast, and a crossover with the Fairly Odd Parents with the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. There were plans for a sequel in 2002, with summer 2004 being the release date in place, but this was soon cancelled due to script issues and the fact that the TV series was a thing, so a sequel would have been pointless. There have even been talks about a reboot or revival, with John A. Davis in 2016 stating that he had a story in mind, while in 2020, Rob Paulson said that it wouldn't surprise him if one got greenlit, given how much people love the show and the characters. Carl, in particular, was one of them. So yeah, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius was a success, and honestly, I'd be perfectly fine with a reboot or revival, whether it be in the style of the original series or even my bizarre fanfiction-y action-focused idea for the show, which has a 2D anime art style akin to, say, Fullmetal Alchemist or Sailor Moon, Jimmy sporting a ponytail, Carl having a bowl cut, Cindy resembling how she does in the movie, and Sheen not just being an Ultralord fanatic, but also a cinephile, while Goddard resembles a Great Dane, Nick has more of a role in the series, and Jimmy rides on a hoverboard. But chances are the former is more likely to happen than the latter, and I'm just rambling now. So yeah, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius is pretty good, and I highly recommend it. Whether you decide to pick it up on this DVD here, or on Blu-ray, you're going to have a good time with this movie. It's funny, it's got good animation, it's got an excellent voice cast, it's got a pretty decent soundtrack, and it's a nice little movie to reminisce about the good old days of Nickelodeon back in the 2000s when Jimmy Neutron was a big deal alongside the Fairly Odd Parents and SpongeBob SquarePants, and, well, it was back when they were pretty much trying anything and showing whatever they wanted to. They weren't just playing it safe like they are these days. It's overall a good time, and I definitely am not going to forget any of those little things about this film. So, with that, this concludes my review of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. I hope you enjoyed it, found it entertaining and educational, and made you want to seek out this movie. And let me know in the comments down below what you think of my bizarre little dark, serious version of Jimmy Neutron. It's a weird idea that I have sitting in my head, and who knows? Maybe that'll come to fruition if Jimmy Neutron ever gets rebooted. It probably won't, but hey, my man can dream. And so, I want you to do the following things. First of all, I want you to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell for notifications, so that way you get notified of when my next video is. Second, please like this video and share it with all your friends, because I put a lot of work into these videos, and to not get any likes or people sharing it around is just, it makes me sad, and it makes Jeremy want to throw you all in the dungeon. Yeah. Enough. Anyway, I'm pretty much rambling at this point. So with that, I will catch you. Forgot that. Catch you later. I'll see you whenever.